break your ankles if I post up, pivot. If I'm open and I shoot it, if not, then I dish it. Give it go, then I get it right back. Mismatch, took him right to the rack. Tell you haters, get off my back. Hit a ref, blow the whistle, and won in fact. Ain't no D'ing me up when I jump like Scotty.
Another thing I definitely wanted to talk about going into this weekend, BYU is in the Coaches vs. Cancer Classic, which for the first couple of games isn't going to be that big of a deal. They play Georgia State tonight, and then they already beat Tennessee State. But they are going to need something out of this tournament when they get to New York. BYU is a team that barely got into the NCAA Tournament a year ago. They were a 14 seed, had to play in the play-in game, and there were a lot of teams, a lot of people who believed that BYU didn't belong in the tournament because they didn't have that marquee win. And the Coaches vs. Cancer Classic is where they could end up with that win. I mean, let's see. They do have a few things going for them. And going into this game, they played very well against Tennessee State. They still obviously have to have another win tonight against Georgia State to move on. But Tyler Haws, there was high expectations for going into the year, he did not miss a beat. He scored 22 on 7 of 15 shooting, 8 of 9 from the line. 4 rebounds. He gave them everything that they needed. Haws is definitely going to be one of the guys that everyone's going to have to pay attention to, which makes BYU scary is because if you start to pay attention to him, they still have Matt Carlino who could drop 30 on a moment's notice. Now, Matt Carlino said before the season he wanted to be more of a playmaker, more of a guy who's going to distribute the ball because they had so many weapons. And that's exactly what he did. He actually had 10 assists against Tennessee State. It shows that not only is he saying it, he's putting his words into action. And putting those words into action could mean big things for BYU. But having said that, going into the Coaches vs. Cancer Classic, when they get to New York, they're going to be playing Florida State in their first game when they get there. Florida State is going to be a really tough test. The one thing that they're going to have to hope for is that Brandon Davies does not get completely bogged down with their athleticism. This is the one thing that can hurt BYU. They're not incredibly athletic. They don't have a ton of experience down low. It's really Brandon Davies, Josh Sharp, and then you're hoping that maybe you get something from Nate Austin or Ian Harward. And because of that, it's going to be even more important for their guards to shoot well. It's going to be important for Brock Zylstra, important for Haws, important for Carlino. It's going to be important for Cusick to actually give them something offensively, to be able to get off to a good start. That's maybe more important than anything, is them getting off to a good start. Because this tournament could be the difference between BYU being in the NCAA tournament or playing in the NIT. Now, with all of that, could they still get in without wins here? Sure, they could. I mean, they could just run away with the West Coast Conference. They could win the tournament title, and they won't have to worry about it. They could pick up another win later in the month. They could pick up a win next month, and maybe one thing that could really help them, maybe they don't lose until February. Who knows? But getting these early marquee wins sometimes are the difference between a team making it and not making it. And you look at take St. Mary's as an example, an in-conference example. A few years ago, in 2008, they made the NCAA tournament, and everyone focused on one marquee win outside of the conference schedule, and that was when they beat Drake. And Drake wasn't expected to do all that well that year, but they slotted them in at the first game of the season. St. Mary's beat them. Drake went on to win the next 20 games. And because of that, you never know who you're playing. You never know what wins you're going to end up with. And this is why even games, even as early as November, can make the difference between in and out of the NCAA tournament. And the reason why there's going to be pressure on BYU to do something impactful in the Coaches vs. Cancer. You have to at least show that you're going to be competitive. Show that you're in it with these teams. You can't let your guard down at all. You have to make a good performance. You have to show up and play well. Even if they were to lose to a Florida State who they shouldn't beat, or aren't expected to beat, I should say, you got to show that you're competitive, that Brandon Davies can handle it, that Carlino can handle it, that Hawes can do it, that you losing by 15, losing by 20 is not going to get the job done. You got to keep it in a 10-point game, less than that. You can't let it get to a blowout. You can't let the game get away from you. And with that, it's like that's the reason why you have to hope that maybe you are competitive in these games, because it could make a difference a few months from now.